live stream. Thank you for coming on. My name is Aaron Apter. Wow, how do I not use these? Yeah, so I don't want to use any filters. So anyhow, I'm Aaron Apter, and this is my weekly live stream where I talk about what it's like to be a working professional musician here in Nashville and kind of document the whole ups and downs of not only the musical life, but also like kind of the personal and professional life and how we have to navigate all these different aspects of, our career, our art, our business, in a way to kind of create what we want to create as musicians, and create the life we want to have and the career we want to have working in music. So because I get a lot of comments on my live streams when I'm playing, because I get a lot of comments on the videos and I can't always address them because I'm playing, I like to come on here once a week and just have a chance to talk with all of my viewers. And usually it starts off, there's about 1 or 2 people at the start, and then by the time I have to hop off, there's about 30 or 40 people. But I do this every Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. So yeah, I wanted to talk about just kind of what's going on the week. I was actually supposed to be on the road this week touring, and the artist I was working with got COVID, so we had to cancel. And that's kind of one of the pitfalls of playing music, in the sense that I don't have any real job security. Like, yeah, I could be working with an artist and all of a sudden, let's say they get sick or they want to quit music or they get arrested, who knows? But my whole fate is kind of tied up with like either one person or one band. And that's why I'm always looking to do different things. Like, for example, do YouTube and start building things online so that I can support myself in the event that the artist I'm working with gets COVID. So today, this weekend, I picked up a few extra gigs, just last minute sub gigs, and hopped on them instead. And thank you, Exile Saturn. Where are you from? Let me know where you're from. Let me know why you're here. But yeah, so I picked up some extra gigs this week, or just some random last minute gigs to cover for me losing a road gig this week. And, it all comes and goes, and it's really a marathon. Sometimes you can get bummed out because you have a bad week. You might have a bad gig, or maybe a gig you're supposed to have doesn't pan out. But it really just kind of, over time, it evens out. And I like to say that playing music is very much like playing the stock market, in the sense that there's a saying in the stock market that time invested in the stock market beats timing every time. And what that means is sometimes when you're investing, people want to try day trading, or what I like to call hit for a lick. They want to get in, get out, make some quick money. And there really is no such thing as quick, easy money in the music business. It is really just, it's a long, steady grind, and there's ups and downs. And sometimes you might hit a hot hand, sometimes you might have a bad streak. But over time, things average out. And really, I think it represents the average of your effort. So you can be giving like, an A+ effort, and sometimes you get C- results for weeks, months, even years. But I think over time, if you stay the course, things kind of start to even out. And so we have Exiled Saturn is Southern Utah, 1 year left of school, and then you're thinking of moving to Nashville. So what are you going to school for? Tell me what you're going to school for. Love to hear about that. And so Dan says he wants to talk about charting the gigs. So ask your question. What are your questions about charting songs for gigs? What specifically do you want to know? I know everyone does a little bit of a different process. I'm actually, like right now, these are some charts. I got a whole pile that I was just kind of writing out myself earlier today. That's just part of the process. But yeah, Dan, if you have questions about charting, let me know. I'll be glad to answer them. Exiled Saturn, please tell me what you're thinking about moving to Nashville for, what you're going to school for. I would love to answer any questions you have about that. So where and what school are you going to for percussion for? Because coincidentally, I mean, that's what I went to school for. I went to school, I was a percussion major in school. I have a lot of thoughts on going to school for music, especially in today's day and age with what you want to do. And so Dan, I think Dan is actually from Utah as well. Dan asked, do you use an iPad? And if so, what apps do you use? I'm being hired to play a show in Idaho, 3 hours. I know maybe half the songs, but want to make sure I'm prepared. And you say you have 5 days. Okay, well, so it's a great question, Dan. And everybody has a little bit of a different process. Me personally, I use an iPad, and I use an app called Fourscore. And Fourscore is just it's a kind of a musical database. It just really organizes your PDFs. And what I really do is I handwrite out my charts sometimes, and then I'll take a photo of them and put them in the Fourscore. And Fourscore is kind of meant for musicians, and it's a way for me to collect a library of all my songs, and I can easily make a set list that I can just swipe through them. Now, Dan, you say you're hired to do a gig in Idaho. That's about 3 hours. That's about 3 hours of playing, and you know half the material. So you got about 90 minutes of music to learn. And so, and this is all like this varies dependent upon somebody and their experience. I used to learn songs, like I learned them all up here, right? I would like memorize a song note for note, or I'd memorize an arrangement. And when I had time, I could do that. And sometimes if I was like doing a showcase gig where I was playing like 3 or 4 songs, I could do that in no time at all. But now I'm often learning about 50 new songs every week, at least. And sometimes it's really like a fire hose of musical information. And this brings up the question, do I want to like really nail like a few of the songs and then just kind of phone in a couple of the other ones? Or do I want to just like be adequate at all of them? And it's really thinking about what's the most important part of the gig, what's the whole goal. So Dan, it's really like, I'm not sure how adept you are at quickly learning material. Also, is this new material? Like is this original material? Is this covers? And then also, like, do you read the Nashville Number System? And Nashville Number System is a shorthand way of writing out chords. I like using that because even though I'm playing drums, I can hear the chords, and sometimes instead of just counting, I can actually see and like hear, okay, this is where I'm at in the form because I can hear that it's on this chord. So Dan, that's it. To answer your question, like I would need more specifics about your situation. Everybody's different. But I would say, like, I like to write out charts. Sometimes I'll write out the form of a song. I'll write out, okay, we have a chorus, we got a verse, then we got another chorus, and then a bridge. I like to map out if there's anything weird about the tune, like if there's any 5-bar phrases, any weird turnarounds. I like to have pretty much like a roadmap to get me through. And that's what I do. Like, for example, this week I had about 2 hours of new material I needed to learn. I just really sketched out roadmaps for all the songs really quickly. And I can sketch out a roadmap of a song maybe in 5-10 minutes. And am I going to play the part note for note? No, but I don't think that's really the point. The point is to get through the song. And my ear and my experience is enough to kind of get me through and kind of hear what's going on. But again, everyone learns in different ways. So the last point I want to make, Dan, is that learning how to learn material is a skill. So I can quickly now absorb material in a short amount of time. And I've done that through practice because I'm always charting out songs. I'm always having to go to gigs and play songs I maybe have never heard, maybe heard once or twice. So it's really a learning process, Dan. And I would say, like, doing gigs like this, you're going to figure something out. And if you like fall flat on your face, you said, oh, well, maybe my approach didn't work this time around. What did I do that was kind of not cool? And so Exiled Saturn is, you're in southern Utah, and you're thinking about coming to Nashville, let me know if you have any questions about Nashville, or like, what's what that process is going to be like. Let me see. I'm looking through some of these questions, and you want to know how can you best prepare over the next year to play in Nashville. So, Exiled Saturn, here's one thing I really want to like, that anytime I answer a question, I say everybody, it all depends. Like, let's say you are a seasoned like drummer out in the LA scene and you want to know what it's like to prepare to come to Nashville. That person's process is going to be very different than if somebody who is, for example, like you, a college student, and then looking to come out to Nashville. So I would say for somebody like you, just generally speaking, define what you want to do. Like, okay, it sounds like you want to play drum set, but where do you want to play drum set? Do you want to play drum set on the road? Do you want to play it in town? Do you want to do a combination of both? Do you want to focus on working in the studio? Do you want to focus on being your own person? Do you want to focus on songwriting? There's really so many different avenues available. Now, somebody like you, I'd say when you're moving to Nashville, if you're a fairly younger or less experienced musician, here's a really important tip. I would say try to be the drummer that Nashville needs. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes when you're going into a new scene, you want to like establish who you are and you have a certain idea of what you want to play and how you want to play it. But maybe there's not a market for that yet, or maybe people don't know you. So a great way to get people to know you is to come in and be the drummer that they need. So for example, I'm not a country guy at all. I didn't know any country. When I first moved to Nashville though, I'm like, oh, I have to learn how to play country. So even though I wasn't a country drummer, I was becoming a country drummer because that's what Nashville needed. And sometimes when you establish a name for yourself, or you're a little bit in a different part of your career where you're like, listen, maybe I don't play country and I'm just really strong into R&B and I'm playing in that scene, that's my lane. Maybe that's what you want to approach. But if you're younger, I would say really take some time, be open to everything, and be ready to come and get your ass kicked. It's very much like you'll think you're really good, and then you'll play a good gig, and then like maybe the next day you'll like play a gig where you feel like you're absolute shit. And I think that's a reality for a lot of musicians, especially young musicians, even experienced musicians. But really come with a humble attitude and be ready to go through some serious ups and downs and be ready to commit to it. But Nashville's a great place to play music. And we got my buddy Joel here from Arizona. So he's passing through Nashville with his 4 kids on the way to East Tennessee August 1st. And then, oh, that's great, man. And then, are you driving all the way from Arizona? Ooh, I hope not. That is a hike. So I'm guessing you're probably going to maybe Knoxville, Gatlinburg area. But yeah, let me know when you're rolling through town because I definitely will be playing August 1st. What is that? Wow, that's this week. Yeah, I definitely will be playing at some point. And I think the 7th, I'm not sure where I'm going to be the 7th. But yeah, drop me a line, Joel. So we have Nelly asking, just wanted to know what happens when your planned gigs are canceled like this weekend. Is there any security and they have to pay, or is it just lost? That's a great question. And that all depends. It's really like a lot of music at certain levels, even like higher up levels, it's a handshake agreement and there isn't a lot of security. So even like some of these bigger names, like there used to be a thing called retainers where like if you're playing with an artist, you would have like a salary pretty much, even if you weren't on the road. And there's very few gigs like that anymore. It's like even on the high levels. And a lot of it is like if you're a side musician, you're left to your own devices. So for example, this weekend, like I lost out on the money I was gonna because I wasn't out there playing. And I wasn't only doing it just for money, even though money is kind of what I need to pay my bills. But I was doing it for more experience, more exposure. I could create some content. I could do some original music. But yeah, sometimes, or let's say like the artist loses all their money, or let's say the artist doesn't want to pay you. And then sometimes you're like, oh man, you can be put over a barrel, and you have to pick what fights you want to battle. And so, for example, this weekend, I was literally on my way. I had arranged for my cat sitter. I had packed up all my gear. I had swapped out gear. I went and bought a few new pieces. Literally, as I was heading out the door to go to the bus for the gig, got word that it was canceled. And I turned down a lot of other, probably better paying gigs this weekend because I wanted to do this gig. And am I upset or mad about that? No, because that's just the way things break sometimes. And I lost some money on that. And is that disappointing? Yeah, it can be frustrating. I'm not mad at anybody for it at all. But one of the realities of being an independently employed musician is that you are really responsible for yourself and you have a lot of freedom. And so with a lot of freedom comes a lot of, again, responsibility. So what happens when your gigs bottom out? Do you have any money saved up? Do you have a network where you can do other, where you can ask for other gigs in the short term? Do you have any source of finances outside of just playing your gigs? And so that's why I've started selling like charts for the Nashville Number System on my newsletter. And the link is actually in this, right here in this video. So I have a book of, I think, about 4,000 charts for Nashville that I would recommend anybody having if they come here. It's $200, but I have it on sale for $99 right now. But I created a book of that. It took me hours and hours, like days, weeks, months to create. But I've started making some side income off of that. And that's a great way, like that's a way for me to kind of control a little bit of my own income. With YouTube, I get, because I have a certain amount of followers right now, I get YouTube advertising dollars. And really that's like maybe about $100 a month right now, which that's not that much, but every little bit helps. And like right now what I'm doing is I'm building an audience so that, let's say that like, you know, I can find a way to, let's say I get an audience of 20,000 someday. And let's say I decide to release a book. Let's say maybe just a small fraction of my audience reads that book. Well, I built the audience and then I can sell some merchandise or sell some products based on that. And I think that's really important to build an audience for whatever you're doing, even if you're just a side musician. And like content is part of that game, but I'm not doing content just for the sake of content. I'm doing it because A, I want to help out other musicians and be of value to other musicians. But B, I'm kind of laying the groundwork for me kind of having the keys to my own car, and I'm driving to the destiny that I want. And so one of the really scary and empowering things about being a self-employed musician is that you and you alone control your own destiny. And so, and what that means is like, if you're like me, a side musician, yeah, you are going to be at the whims and mercy of other musicians sometimes when you're playing with the bands, you know, if you're not the artist, and that's the reality of it. So what other things can you do that you solely control? So like you can solely, if you write songs, you own your publishing rights. You know, maybe you want to sell t-shirts on your website. There's always something you can kind of do for yourself that also aids your musical career. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And it's a 24-hour-a-day job. Like I'm exhausted. I don't really have days off. I was just thinking right before, and I think this before every Sunday, I'm usually exhausted by the time I do this. I'm thinking, I need a vacation. I need time off. I don't want to do this live stream today. Maybe I'll just post something, say, hey, I'm sick. But I love what I do musically. I love helping other musicians. And when you find a career that you love, doesn't mean every day is easy, doesn't mean you want to do every day, but it's a lot easier to stick with it. And that's why I'm really sticking with music this time around, because I absolutely love what I do and it's a lot of work. And so I know for the foreseeable future, it is going to be a grind daily. And I'm trying to pace myself, but I love doing what I do. And I've been doing the YouTube thing for about a year now, and that's slowly starting to pay off. Eventually, what I would like to do is have advertisers that I could actually pay to be on my videos, or I actually have some kind of affiliate or sponsors to help kind of boost my career along financially. Uh, and so Joel has said a lot of music venues have been rotating house bands. Yeah, I mean, that's like, again, music venues, they're like, and music owners, again, you're at their whim. So it's going to come and go. And you can do what you can do to really develop your audience when you're at these venues, to develop your relationship with these venues. But things really can come and go. And you are not so much in control of everything in life. So control what you can control. And so Exiled Saturn says, how important is social media presence out there? That's a great question. And you ask 20 different people, you're going to get 50 different answers. Here's my take on social media. I think social media is definitely an important part of the game. It is not the game. It's like the side dish. It is not the main course. With social media, so many people get kind of enamored with it and get hypnotized by it, because you can actually see your progress. You can see how many people are liking your videos. You can see how many people are watching. You can watch your audience grow. And you're getting feedback. Oh, this is great. I'm doing good. And sometimes with your musical craft, you don't get that feedback right away. And you're less encouraged to continue working on that. Same thing with networking in the business side of music. Sometimes you really have to invest a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it doesn't pay off right away and you don't see it. But I would say investing time in person is far more important than social media, because FaceTime with somebody, talking with somebody like 5 minutes, a 5-minute conversation in person is worth more than 5 email interactions or 5, comments back and forth on social media. Now, that being said, when I first moved to Nashville, I hadn't played in years, and I just decided to start over again. And I lost out on a lot of gigs that I was qualified for, because I remember there was one comment in particular that stuck out to me. And someone said, hey man, I like all the samples you sent me, but I looked at your social media stuff and it's like, you're like a ghost for the past 5 years. What's going on? And people want to see that you're out there and you're busy and you're current, or that you're doing something. And, I think that social media, sometimes it's a way, it's kind of your ticket into the door, or maybe it will let people at least take a look at you. And that will only get you so far, though, because you really have to bring it when you're in person. And also think about some of your favorite musicians, your most influential musicians on your instruments. Are they huge social media influencers? Probably not. I think the number of Instagram or YouTube followers just really talks about your ability to market, which is important as a musician. Don't get me wrong. But that's not necessarily an indicator of your career success. And then also, I think age really matters, because some people at certain ages, they're like, I don't want to do the social media thing. That's not for me. And then some people who've grown up with it understand it and it's easier for them. So Exiled Saturn, about like saying how important social media is out there, it all depends. And like, what do you want to do? Are you trying to be an artist? Are you trying to be a side person? I think it really is part of the game, but it is not the game. And so one way I really try to balance that out is I do a simple formula, 4 M's: music, marketing, mindfulness, and money. If I spend 90 minutes a day on each of those areas, and I do that consistently over the long term, I'm good. So think about your social media as your marketing. And if you have an intentional effort at that and you dose that out regularly, it'll pay off. Yeah, and Joel, yeah, I mean, there is, again, I'm bummed about the cancellation, but it happens, right? A year from now, I'll probably forget about it. And that's just like, if you have the mindset of, okay, these are the breaks, this is what the business is, this comes with the territory. And when I was younger, I've lost some gigs. I've had some cancellations, or I tanked some auditions, and there were some gigs I lost out on that weren't my fault. And they really, I carried that animosity or that disappointment. I carried that for a long time afterwards. And carrying that is like really like carrying extra weights. And sometimes if you like carry like an extra 20 pounds, if you're just doing it like walking up the steps, it's not a problem. But if you carry that extra 20 pounds, it doesn't seem too heavy. If you carry that for miles and miles and miles, it becomes really heavy and exhausts you. And I think that's where carrying resentments, carrying disappointments and getting too caught up in something, like losing a gig, losing an audition, it can really hold you back. So one thing about working as a musician, like, yeah, I could be bummed out about a cancellation, but what's being bummed out about it going to do? Nothing. And you know what? I also stayed up all night the night before, really locking down all the charts, making sure I had everything nailed. I like slept like 3 hours that night. And I'm like, all right, this is what happens. And then, the gig's not happening. And was I bummed? Yeah, of course I was bummed. But that's not going to pay my bills. And I say, all right, well, I got to find something else now. And, you know, you hit these bumps in the road and you can only control what you can control. Yeah, I mean, I got to play with Mike Lytham. Yeah, I mean, that was, again, it was a gig. Gig's a gig. So Exiled Saturn said, you mentioned you started over in Nashville. What did you do between college and what was the transition like? And that's a whole nother long story. I think I might do some videos on this week because I have some people coming in. We're going to be shooting some video. We're going to be shooting some content. And yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot of those things. So Exiled Saturn, after I got out of college, I actually played for quite a while. I toured. I was in New York, then I was in Chicago. I worked with a lot of national, regional, local acts, you name it. I've like kind of like top to bottom. Then I had, I was involved in an accident. I was riding a bike. I got ran over by a truck. Long story short, set my life on a whole different career path. You know, and then I pursued, you know, triathlon for a bit as a result of that accident. And I went back to school to learn physical therapy. And I moved to Nashville so I could help other musicians with their pain and their injuries. And I hadn't played for a while. And being in Nashville, after about a year, I was like, I just want to play. I don't want to do any of this rehab work anymore, even though there was a great market for it. And so that's a whole nother story. And I'll get into that this week when I'm doing some videos. But yeah, I essentially started over in Nashville. And I think that was really good for me because I had the mindset like, oh, I'm literally starting music over again. Not like, oh, I'm a professional and I'm in this new city. I really revamped my attitude and I approached it with really like, I'm grateful to have any gig, even if it's for $20. And I haven't played music in years and now I'm in Nashville. Can I even do this? And that's a whole nother long story, but I have lots of video on my channel about that whole experience. But if there's something you want to know about that, let me know. So another question, where'd you store your drum kit to play when you first moved to Nashville? Or did you get a house as soon as you moved? That's a great question. When I first moved to Nashville, I didn't have a drum kit. Seriously, because I didn't really plan on playing music. And then got a house and I could play music there. And so then I went through some personal things where I was no longer living in that house, and now some of my drums are behind me. So I always like to keep my instruments with me. I always have my instruments insured. Great thing about Nashville is a lot of the places you play, they have backline kits. So you can just show up and there's a drum set there waiting for you. So yeah, that's a great question there. So Stoney, how much do you make from base pay doing 3 shifts a day? I know it varies. Yeah, it varies. Some places will pay a base pay of, they'll give like a band like $200 for 4 hours. And if you're a trio, great. If you're 5 people, great. That's what you get. And then you have to work the rest for tips. Some places like Garth Brooks' new Honky Tonk, they're like paying musicians like, 200, 225 for bass pay for 4 hours, which is much more reasonable. And a lot of people are like playing for tips here as well. And I don't really want to comment on how fair or unfair that system is. It's just that's what the system is right now. So with base pay, if we're doing 3 shifts a day, it's all really going to vary. And I like to use the stock market analogy. Time invested into the market beats timing. So a lot of times people will try to cherry pick, say, oh, this gig has a better base pay, I'm going to try to get this gig. Or sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to pay for that low of base pay right now, or they don't make really great tips. And I've found that over time, the more gigs and shifts I play, the better the pay becomes, or the better calls I get, because I show up prepared and I give my best effort. And sometimes we don't make that much in tips at all, and I try not to let that affect myself, because I know that eventually it'll even out because I'm playing so much. And also, because I'm playing so much, I'm getting calls and I've established myself as kind of more of a solid, reliable player. I will get calls from people that they don't post online. They only call people because they only want to know who they are. Like, they want quality people. So as you build your reputation, I think the quality of pay and play goes up. But if you're new in town, really just take some time to be patient with that. Okay, so No Name says, if you're starting over and were a musician moving to Nashville, how would you go about meeting people and getting gigs? It's a great question. I have lots of videos about that on my channel. Like, you can look at the Nashville experience. I think I had that in a playlist, and I really document my whole process. And how I go about meeting people and getting gigs, I would say meeting people and networking is like a full-time job, and that's outside of playing. Like, you have to go out, look at the people, like see the bands that you like, or like see like maybe I want to do this, or like just get a feel, get a pulse, and talk to people. It's really awkward. It's like dating. Say, hey, you know what? I really like the way you play. Can I buy you a drink? Can I take a lesson with you sometimes? Seriously, do things like that. Go to open jams. There's a million ways you can do it. And the wonderful and frustrating thing is there's no blueprint, but you really have to like hit the ground, pound the pavement. I always say boots on the ground, meaning get off the internet, get out there in person, go talk to people. Yeah, it's a grind. Yeah, you may not get that response right away, but if you invest time being out there, it really helps. So Dan the drummer says, what exercise and warm-ups are you doing to stay healthy? 8 to 12 hours a day playing takes a toll on the body. Again, that's absolutely correct. And that's really what I moved to Nashville for originally, was to help musicians with those issues, specifically with health, specifically with injury and overuse injuries, which a lot of musicians have. And because of my backgrounds, both, in terms of rehab and also in terms of music, I have like a unique skill set and perspective. And here's what I can say is that really your health, emotionally, physically, financially, it's not just like a short-term thing. It is like a big picture, and you have to maintain it over time. And you can't reverse course or change things overnight. You have to be really patient with it. And so I exercise probably about 6 times a week. And I focus on what my body needs specific to the tasks I'm trying to do. So as a former Ironman triathlete, I used to do a lot of volume of exercise, endurance exercise, and that's just the name of the game. I don't need to be working out that much anymore because I'm not competing. But because I'm in these like fixed positions, like where you're sitting down, your body adapts to positions it's in. And sometimes if you're in this compressed position, like sitting down behind a drum set, in these rounded positions, your body eventually starts adapting to them. So I think about ways to, or I think about, okay, I need to spend time in opposite positions. I need to gain strength in those positions. So do I have mobility? Do I have strength? And it's very specific. It's not like you just have to do this. But what I can say is that attending to your health, physically and mentally, is very much like taking care of your instrument. It's very much like practicing. So if you're working out, if you're eating right, if you're not drinking on the gig, think about that as investing into your musical instruments, and really investing in your career, because your body, your mind is like, that's your most important asset when you're a musician. And I could really talk forever about that. But yeah, I have to cut it short here today because I have to go head out, do a session here. So I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to be back here again next week, Sunday at 3:30. I'm going to try to live stream a few gigs this week if I get a chance to. I'm also having a little bit of a film crew coming out here this week, and we're going to shoot some things. But again, if you have any questions, shoot them to me, aaronaptermusic@gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram as aaronaptermusic. But really, my whole thing is I want to help people. And if I can give you some assistance, answer some questions outside of this, shoot me a line. Thanks for watching, everyone. Everyone have a great week.